Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really plunging into a critical topic, something that's definitely been making waves across North America. Canada's strategic response to, well, those escalating U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs.
Right. Big stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to kind of dissect the details, Canada's, multi-pronged approach. It's like a high-stakes tightrope walk, really,
It is.
trying to safeguard their industries, their workers. So let's dig into the sources we've got.
Okay, well, the context here is pretty fascinating. It really sets the stage.
Yeah.
So back in March, President Donald Trump, he initially imposed a 25% tariff,
Right, I remember that.
but it was on all steel and aluminum imports globally.
Globally. Okay.
And then, just earlier this month, that got hiked up pretty significantly, actually, to 50%.
Wow, 50%.
Yeah. And that global application, well, it immediately sparked these widespread concerns about potential dumping.
Dumping. Okay, maybe just quickly explain what that means for anyone not familiar.
Sure, yeah. So dumping is basically when goods get sold into another country really cheap, like below their normal value, maybe even below what they cost to make.
Why would they do that?
Well, to grab market share fast or maybe just offload excess supply they have. But the effect is it can really hammer domestic industries in the country getting dumped on.
Got it. That makes sense. So that's the backdrop. And Canada, well, they didn't just sit back, did they?
No, not at all.
Our sources show Prime Minister Trudeau has been pretty active. Saying he and President Trump actually agreed to try and pursue a trade deal.
Right, within like a 30-day window, apparently.
A tight deadline. But at the same time, Canada had already hit back, right, back in March.
Exactly. They slapped on 25% counter-tariffs, but specifically targeting U.S. steel and aluminum products.
Okay, so targeted retaliation. It's diplomacy and direct action then.
Precisely. And if you kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, that really shows Canada's dual approach, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're negotiating, but they're also putting up these robust protective measures.
So what happens after that 30-day negotiation window?
Well, Trudeau indicated that on July 21st, once that period ends, those counter-tariffs, they'll be adjusted.
Adjusted how?
The idea is for them to be, and this is a quote, consistent with progress made in the broader trading agreement with the U.S.
So basically, if talks go well, maybe they ease off. If not...
If not, those counter-tariffs could get tougher. It gives them leverage, right?
Makes sense. Keep the pressure on.
And there's more. Ottawa's also bringing in new rules, June 30th. These limit federal procurement government buying, basically.
To using steel and aluminum from where?
Only from Canada and its reliable trading partners, so steering government contracts towards certain sources.
So it's not just fighting back directly or talking. It's also, like the Prime Minister said, reinforcing strength at home. That seems quite comprehensive.
It really is.
What about that dumping concern, though? If the U.S. tariffs apply worldwide, isn't there a risk other countries just send their stuff to Canada instead?
That's a huge concern, yeah. A very real fear that Canada could become, the destination for redirected steel and aluminum, an overflow.
So how are they tackling that?
They plan to set up new tariff rate quotas, TRQs.
Okay, TRQs, break that down.
Think of it like a two-tier system.
Oh, sorry.
A certain volume of imports can come in at a lower duty, a lower tax.
Okay.
But anything above that specific volume, that faces a much higher tax, discourages excessive amounts.
And how high are we talking?
Well, for steel imports from countries they don't have free trade deals with, these quotas will be set at 100% of 2024 levels.
So basically capping it at last year's amounts from those places.
Pretty much. And we're also told new tariffs are coming, in the weeks ahead, specifically aimed at unfair trading practices and this problem of overcapacity globally.
Wow, okay. They're really pulling out multiple tools here.
It really raises this interesting point, doesn't it, about how a country has to react kind of comprehensively when its vital industries face this sort of pressure.
Yeah. And there was also mention of task forces.
Oh, yeah. That's significant, too. Two separate task forces, one for steel, one for aluminum.
What is their job?
They're specifically tasked with monitoring the whole situation really closely and providing expert advice back to the government as things unfold, keeping an eye on the impact.
And the industry itself must be feeling this intensely.
Oh, absolutely. We know the Canadian Steel Producers Association and the United Steelworkers Union, they've been very vocal, calling for urgent action. highlighting the real-world impact on jobs, livelihoods.
I bet.
Industry Minister Melanie Joly even called it a state of emergency for Canada's steel and aluminum sectors. That's strong language.
State of emergency, yeah.
It really acknowledges that anxiety workers must be feeling. You can almost, feel the tension in those communities.
It's just an incredibly layered strategy they're rolling out. So just to kind of sum it up for you listening, Canada is really employing this comprehensive, multi-layered approach to navigate these very complex trade waters.
Yeah, from the direct counter-tariffs.
Right, and the new procurement ruling.
Setting up those dedicated task forces for monitoring.
And still keeping those difficult negotiation efforts going.
Yeah.
It's all aimed at safeguarding these vital industries and, the hundreds of thousands of people working in them.
And taking that slightly broader view, stepping back from the immediate details, it does raise an important question for you to think about.
Okay.
How might a country's parallel efforts, trying to reinforce strength at home while also engaging in these tough international trade negotiations, how might that shape the future of global commerce? And supply chains, too, especially in really critical industries like steel and aluminum. Food for thought.